Hi everyone, and welcome to this workshop series on branding. I'm Chris Converse, and today we're going to be working with audio. Now, many brands have an audio component to their identity, which can be just as powerful as the visual component of their brand. So let's see if you recognize some of these examples. That's Intel. That one was Xbox. That's the Mac startup chime. T-Mobile. MGM. And finally, Netflix. So in this workshop, I'll show you how you can start working with audio by using Audition and adding an audio element to the logo that we created in the last workshop. So here's the logo that we animated in the last workshop. And here is the logo combined with audio that we'll edit from Adobe Stock. Now, if you've never worked with Audition before, there's a brief intro video, plus I'll be showing you all of my techniques step by step. So with that, download the project files and let's get started. If you plan to follow along with me, you'll need to log into your Creative Cloud account, which will also enable libraries. And then we'll also be using Adobe Capture on our phones to record audio, and we'll be searching for audio on Adobe Stock. Now, during the workshop, we'll be using Audition to edit, combine, and add special effects to audio. Then I'll show you how to import that audio into After Effects and combine it with the animation that we created in the last workshop. So when you're ready, join me in the next video and we'll get started. If you're new to Audition, it can seem pretty intimidating when you first launch the application, especially if there's a lot of panels open. While Audition is a full digital audio workstation, for our purposes today, we only need to be working with a few panels. And these panels are very similar to the other design applications you may be familiar with, most notably InDesign, Illustrator, and Photoshop. In Audition, we work with layers in the editor panel when working with a multitrack file, and we'll talk about multitrack files in just a moment. We also design our audio in the same panel by moving elements around and applying effects, similar to arranging elements on a page, canvas, or artboard in the other apps. Imported files show in the Files panel in Audition, similar to the Links panel in both InDesign and Illustrator. A track in Audition works like a smart object, a link, or a symbol, where we can apply non-destructive effects to audio, like an echo or noise. And in Audition, we can apply effects from the Effects menu or the Effects Rack panel. So let's jump right in by launching Audition, applying a workspace, and creating a multi-track project. So inside of Audition, the first thing we want to do is come up to the window menu, come down to Workspace, and let's enable the Simple Editing workspace. That's going to get rid of a lot of those extra panels, and we're going to have our Files panel, we'll have our Effects Rack, and we'll have the main editor here in the center. Now, to work with a multi-track file, what we need to do is create the multi-track file and then import some artwork. So I'm going to close this up a little bit so I can see the project files. Now inside the project files, there's a main goal podcast folder, and I have two audio files in here, Coach Taylor and the host, Lauren. So what we're going to be doing is bringing in the Coach Taylor WAV file. So before we do that, let's go back to Audition. Let's come up to the File menu and let's choose New Multitrack Session. Right away, we're going to be asked for a destination to save this. I'll just name this My Multitrack. I'll save this to my desktop. For the sample rate, let's pick 48,000 Hertz. You can see that from the drop-down menu here. That's going to match the recording settings that I used when recording Lauren and Taylor here in the studio. And then I'll just come down here and click OK. Now right away, if I go back to the desktop, move this folder out of the way, we have this new multi-track folder. And inside here, we'll see our new Audition file, which has a file extension of .scsx. So I can close that up. Now back over to Audition. We can see the multitrack showing up here in the file list. Let's go back to our project files. Let's grab Coach Taylor Holko. Let's drag that in here. So now we have this file linked into this project. Then to create a track, I can grab the WAV file and drag and drop it right over into the editor. And I've now assigned this audio to track 1. Now if we come in here and play this, I'll hit the space bar.
It feels amazing. These players put so much effort into training.
We can hear Taylor answering one of the questions that was asked by our host. Now this file being inside of this track means if I come over here to the rack effects and come in here and add an effect. So let's come in here and do that. I will turn on the first effect. Then I'll come over here to the effects menu, come down here and choose reverb. Then I'll choose the reverb option here. Then in this dialog box here, I can choose the effect that I'd like to apply. So I'll come in here and choose bigger room ambience. Now with that selected, I can leave this panel up. I can bring the playhead back here a little bit, hit the spacebar, and we can hear this effect in real time.
It feels amazing. These players put so much effort.
So it sounds like Taylor's in a really giant room with a little bit of echo. Now again, the great thing here is I can close this, and then I can come over here and turn off this effect, come back and play this.
These players put...
And it sounds just like it did before. So this is a non-destructive effect. Now if you were to double click this, either here or double click the WAV file, we are now inside of the actual WAV file itself. We are actually editing what we see in the project files. So if I came in here and made any kind of a change, like I selected some of the content and hit delete, I would be making a destructive edit to this file, which means I would permanently lose that waveform. So we want to try to avoid editing in the WAV format as much as possible. So I'll go back over here to the Files panel, double click the multitrack, and make all of my edits inside of this panel here. And so now that we have Audition set up and we're comfortable creating a multitrack file, next we'll take a look at Adobe Capture on our mobile device to begin recording some of our own audio and effects. Now the term Foley artist comes from the filmmaking industry and refers to the art of recreating everyday sounds for films. In actuality, people have been doing this for a very long time, and this is a technique that is also used in radio shows, podcasts, audiobooks, just to name a few. And with Adobe Capture running on your phone, you can record sounds in your environment or create your own sounds that you can then edit in Audition. So to show you how to do this, I'll bring my phone up here. I'm going to come in here and launch Adobe Capture. Now from this screen here, I'm going to come up to the audio mode. And now inside of audio mode, I can come down here and tap on the camera. Now in here, what this is actually doing is recording the microphone. I can see a little bit of the camera in the background there, but we're not actually capturing any video. We're only going to be capturing audio. So to do this, I can come down here and just tap on the shutter to begin recording. Now for the first example, I'll just make a swoosh noise. I kind of had this idea that watching the Altura Athletics logo, that it might make this sort of swooshing sound. Now you can make effects with your mouth. So I'm going to come in here and just kind of make a swooshing effect, kind of blowing on the microphone. So I'll hit the record and then do that. Then I can hit stop. I can tap up in the waveform here, slide this back, and then hit play to hear this back. So if I like that, I can come down here and click on the check mark. Now remember that I can edit this in Audition, so the recording that I make doesn't have to sound perfect. So I'll come up here and tap save. I'll save this into the Altura Athletics library, and I'll just name this swoosh. Click done, tap save, and now that's going to be saved to my library. Now at the moment, we can't take elements from our library and bring them right into Audition or After Effects or Premiere, but I can take these files and just export them right to my desktop. So there's a few ways I can do this. I can come in here inside of Capture on my phone, tap on the ellipsis icon here and choose Export As. Then I could tap on Wave and then choose where to save this, maybe into my Creative Cloud files. Or the other option back on my desktop is to go into my Creative Cloud application, come over here to the Files tab, come down here to my libraries, then I'll open up the Altura Athletics library, scroll down, and I'll see my WAV file showing up down here in the area where I have not grouped anything. So I can right click on the swoosh, come down here and choose Export a Copy, and then I will export this to my desktop. And now you'll see that new WAV file showing up here. And I also recorded some footsteps over here. So let me right click and export a copy of those as well. On the desktop, I'll choose Export. Now I recorded a copy of myself recording the footsteps. So I'll just play this for you real quick. So this is a recording of my wife walking across a hardwood floor with some platform shoes on. So I thought that would be pretty interesting to just sort of show you how you can create your own artwork with just about anything. So now I'll switch back to Audition. I'll create a new multitrack file. So I'll use this little button here. I'm going to come in here and name this My Recordings. Make sure I have the desktop selected, and then I'll click OK. And we'll now see that folder showing up here. Now I'll start with the swoosh. I'll drag and drop this right into the Files panel. Then I'll grab the WAV file and drag and drop it right into track 1. Now, if you have a case where you have a sample rate difference between the original WAV file and the multitrack that you're working with inside of Audition, Audition will show you this dialog box here, telling us that the sample rates don't match and that it can conform the WAV file to match the multitrack. I'm going to come in here and click OK. And when this happens, what you'll see in the Files panel is we have a new WAV file. This WAV file will be in the project folder inside of a folder called Conformed Files. So we now have a copy of the WAV format, which has been resampled to match the multitrack file. So back in Audition in the editor panel, I'm going to come in here and tap the plus sign on the keyboard to zoom in here. You can also zoom in by grabbing this little zooming handle up here. Then I'll come down here and move the playhead to about right here, then hit the space bar to preview this. So that's the sound of me blowing into the microphone. Now that sounds a little harsh. I can also come over here and lower the volume over here as well. Just drag this down a little bit. I can also add some special effects, and I can do some trimming. So the first thing I'll do is come up here and select the razor blade tool. I'll come in here and cut the clip right here. Hit V for the move tool. I'll select the second half and just delete this. Now again, I'm not actually deleting the WAV format. I'm just deleting the tracks in and out point. I can also come in here and grab these little handles here, which control the fade in and fade out options. So I'm going to click and drag. If I drag this across, it's going to fade in slowly at first and then fade in really quickly based on that curve. If I pull this down, we'll get a fade in that'll happen really quick and then slow down, kind of like easing inside of After Effects that we looked at in the last workshop. So I'll just bring this to about right here. Then I'll grab the fade out. I'll move this over here. Maybe pull this down a little bit like this. Let's listen to that. So that sounds a little bit better. With the track selected, let's come down here to the effects. Let's turn on the effects. Let's come in here and choose the FFT filter. Then from this list here, let's come down here and choose the club downstairs. Now when we apply these effects, we can see this curve showing up. I'll leave this up. Let's come up here to the top and let's play this. And now we get much more of a sort of low, muffled whooshing sound. I'll play it again when I'm not talking. Now that sounds pretty cool, and it sounds nothing like my original recording. So now let's close this. I'll move this out to the beginning. Let's come back to the desktop. I'll bring in the footsteps. Grab the footsteps. I'm going to drag this over here. I'll drag this into track 2. I'll move this out to about this point here. I'll open up my window inside of Audition here a little bit. I'm also going to zoom out here a little bit by dragging the view area out a little bit. Jog the playhead to about right here. That's about when the footsteps start. Now to trim this, I can use the razor blade tool again, or I can get my cursor to the left-hand side until I see this little icon here, the same icon that we'll see in the next workshop inside of Premiere. And I will just trim this to the beginning, click and drag to pull this back. And now I can listen to the footsteps. So after the first footstep, I hear a couple little steps here. So she was done walking across the room. So I'm going to come in here and trim this back to this point here. Now for the intro, I'm going to come in here and grab this. I'm going to keep it relatively diagonal, and I'm going to make this fade in for a pretty long amount of time. So it's going to sound like the footsteps are starting much further away. So I'll come back and play this now. So instead of it sounding like she's right there the whole time, it sounds like she's walking from a distance. Then the other thing that I'll do, I'll press the plus key to zoom up here. I'll come over here to the razor blade tool. Let's add a couple more footsteps. So I'm going to cut the clip right here, hit V for the move tool, which is this tool here. I'm going to select this. I'm going to hit copy. Then I'm going to hit paste. So Command C to copy, Command V to paste. I'm going to take the copy and move it down to the track below. And I'm going to set the amplitude to about -6. That's going to make this much lower. Move the play to about right here. I'm going to paste another one on track 4. I'm going to set the amplitude here to about -12. So now I can get 2 extra footsteps that sound like she's walking away. So let's play this. I'll move back here. And so as you can imagine, there's no limit to the number of things that you can start to do when you record your own effects in Capture and then bring these into Audition and start adding your own special effects. Another place that you can get audio for your projects is on Adobe Stock. So on the main Adobe Stock homepage, I'll come in here and switch my main filter to audio. And then I can come in here and search for something. So I'll just search for technology. Press return. And I'll get a list of search results tagged with that criteria. Underneath the main titles, I can see the different moods that these individual audio tracks have been assigned to. And I can see the moods up here in this drop-down menu, which is also another filtering mechanism. So if I come in here and click on these, I can play the audio tracks from any point that I click. So I'll just click right here. Or I can skip ahead. Go to another track. So when I'm looking for some audio for a really short animation like our logo, I'll come in here and look at the waveforms and look at areas where the waveform spikes. This lets me know that something really quick is happening inside of that track. So I'll come in here and play this right here. Or maybe skip ahead. Jump down to another one, maybe play the ending of this one. So the end of that has a nice little crescendo sound. And I'll just come in here and just sort of scroll through and look for different audio pieces. Now, another great feature in the Adobe Stock site is the fact that I can search for audio based on existing audio or something that I might already have. So on my desktop, I have this music file here that I like. So I'll play a little bit of this. So that's got a lot of drums, some clapping, and some swooshy sounds, which I think is going to match really nice with our logo. And I want to use that as my search criteria. So in the top, I'll click on this little folder icon here. Then I'll grab my MP3 file, drag it right into this window. And what Adobe Stock's going to do is it's going to evaluate this file and then search the entire library for songs that sound similar to this. So I can preview this here. So that's what I'm uploading. I'll click Find Similar. And now I'll get a result from Adobe Stock with music that will have similar components to this particular sampled audio. And what's really cool about this is when we get the results, the highlighted sections in green in each track have some of the similar sounds that were in the original file. So I can click in here. Let's try this one. Try this one. And I can scroll through and find what I'm looking for. Now, like I said before, I look for areas where I can see a big change in the levels. So maybe right in here. Let's try something different, maybe down here. So if you remember the animation, we have the A that sort of draws up with the little swoosh off to the left. Then the single A turns into 2 A's and reveals the logo in the middle. So I have that sort of in my mind when I'm going through and looking for audio. Now what I'll do when I want to play with different audio pieces is once I find something that sounds interesting, I'll come over here to the right, I'll click Download Preview. And then when the preview comes down to the desktop, I'll switch over to Audition. Inside of Audition, I'll create a multitrack. I'll call this something like Possible Audio or Ideas. I'll click OK. That will save this folder here. Then I can drag that file right into my Files panel. Then drag this into a track. Then I can come in here and listen to the audio inside of Audition. Then go to my razor blade tool, maybe come in here and cut out little sections that might be of interest. Delete the other pieces, drag this around, maybe add an in and out point, just like we've been doing in some of the previous examples. And really start to narrow down my selection for the audio I'd like to use. And so that's my workflow for downloading sample audio, bringing it into Audition and sort of playing around, looking for the audio that I like. And so here's what my Audition file looked like when I was selecting the final audio for this particular project. If I come in here and play some of these, here's the first track here. Now if I play it again, you can hear 3 sort of beats at the beginning, which match the 3 points of the letter A. So the bottom, the top, and then the sort of swooshing sound. And that's actually the file that I'm going to go with. But here's a couple others that I was playing with. There's a second one. And then one more. I'll come up here and scroll to the beginning. So this first one, like I said, is the one that I want to be using in our final project. And in the next video, I'll show you how I cut this piece together and exported it so that we can use this inside of After Effects for our final animation. So after exploring and experimenting with different audio files from stock, I found an audio file that I want to use for the project. Now, if you'd like to follow along with me, you can go to Adobe Stock and you can search for this file. So put in 353-742-667. Press return. That's going to bring up this file here called Fresh and Hot. You can come over here and just download a preview. I've already licensed this for my project, so I can see it here on the desktop. So I'm going to come back to Audition. Inside of Audition, I'm going to create a new multitrack file. I'll name this Altura Athletics logo. I'll choose the desktop. I'll click OK. That's going to give me a new folder here. Now let's take the M4A file. Let's drag this into the Files panel. Then we're going to drag this into track 1. Now Audition can't work directly with M4A files. It needs a wave. So it's going to conform this automatically for us. So I'll click OK. Then in our project, if I came in here and looked in the conformed files folder, I'll see that new wave file. In the last video, we had taken a look at this file in my entire design exploration file. And at the end of this, we have that sort of 3 beat and then the swoosh. So I'll come in here and just play that. So we can hear those 3 beats and then the swoosh. I'm going to get my cursor about right here. I'm going to hit the plus sign on the keyboard. Or you can come up here and use this tool here to zoom in on the timeline. I want to come in here to these last 3 beats. And I'm going to come in here and cut this about right here with a little bit of noise before that first strong beat here. So I'll come up here to the razor blade tool. I'm going to cut this. Switch to the move tool, select the first part of this and just delete this. Let's zoom up a little bit more. So now let's play this. So now I'm going to use the fade in tool here to cut out the first part of that. So let's get our cursor over this. Let's click and drag. I'm going to pull down on this. And what I want to do is bring this over here so that we're at full volume when the beat starts, but we're really quickly sort of fading this in. So we're losing or getting rid of that first part. So let's come back here, hit play. So now we just hear that first beat. Now when we get to the end, we'll let this play out for a second. So we got that sort of swooshy sound here. So we just want a little bit of the swooshy sound. I want this to be maybe 2 to 2.5 seconds. So we're at 9 seconds here. So coming out here to 11 is about 2 seconds. So maybe we want this to fade out about right here. Switch to my razor blade tool. I'm going to cut this about right here. Move tool, let's delete that first part. Click on the track, and now I'll come in here and just sort of fade this out. And I'll keep this a little bit more of a diagonal. I'll pull it down a little bit, and that'll give us a nice soft fade out for that swoosh. Let's listen to this again. And now I want to add an effect. I want to get rid of the sort of highest pitching and staticky sounds of this. So let's come in here and click on the first track. Let's enable this. Let's come in here and go to the effects menu. Let's go to amplitude and compression, and let's come down here and choose dynamics processing. Now, a lot of these effects, you'll just have to come in here and sort of play with them. There are tons and tons of things you can do in Audition, just like there are tons and tons of filters inside of Photoshop. You just got to come in here and just sort of play with these. You can also do searches and see what other people do to get certain special effects. So for dynamics processing, I'm going to select this. In this dialog box here, I'm going to come in here to the presets, and I'm going to come down to the broadcast limiter. As soon as I select this, you'll see that this curve here just changed. It sort of cut off the top area here. And this is also a curve that we can adjust. We can move these points around. So let's listen to this. Again, these are live, so while this is up, I can still come in here to the timeline panel and play this. So it got rid of that high-end scratchiness, but I want a little bit of that back. So let's come in here and increase this just a little bit. So maybe to about right here. Come back, play it again. So that sounds good. I'm going to close this. Now we'll go up to the File menu. Let's come down and choose Save. And now I want to export this out to a file that I can use inside of After Effects or any application that supports WAV formats. First, I'm going to come up here and zoom out on the timeline. Then I'll grab this entire track. I want this to start at the beginning of the timeline. Then we'll come up to the File menu. We'll come down and choose Export. Then we're going to choose Multitrack Mixdown, which means Audition is going to take every single track in this file and mix it into one single audio file. I'll choose Entire Session. Then I'll choose the desktop. This will be called the Altura Athletics logo Mixdown. The term Mixdown here sort of indicates to you that this came from a multi-track file. So I tend to leave that on my file name just so that I remember that I created this in Audition. So this goes to the desktop. I'll choose the WAV format. There's a bunch of different formats you can choose in here, by the way. You can even go out to MPEG 3, for example. But I'll keep this in the WAV format, which is a high-quality, uncompressed format. When we bring this into After Effects or another application and then render out a final video, the audio will get compressed along with that video. But for now, I want to keep this in an uncompressed format. So I'll choose that WAV format, then I'll come down here and click OK. And now on the desktop, I have a new WAV file that I can bring into After Effects. And that's what we're going to do in the next video. We're going to retime the animation a little bit to match this audio. Now we're going to take a look at bringing that audio file into After Effects and adjusting the animation to match that audio. So here I am inside of After Effects, and this is the file that we completed in the last workshop. We have this animation that plays. We have the A that builds up. We have the angled shape that moves out here toward the left. And then we have the two A's separating to show the center part of the logo, revealing the logo type. So now I want to bring in the audio and remap this a little bit so that the points in the A in the animation and the sweeping logo type reveal is part of that ending swoosh. So I'm going to come back out here to the desktop. Let's get that Altura Athletics Mixdown that we did in the last video. I'll drag this into my project panel in After Effects. Close this up. Now I will grab the WAV file and drag it right down here to the timeline panel. I'll put it at the top. I'll bring it out here to the beginning. We'll come back here and I'll hit the space bar to play this. So now we need to time this so that the animation lines up with the audio file. So let's come up here to the WAV file. Let's toggle open the properties. In here we can see an audio property. Inside here we can see levels. If I open this up one more time, we can see the waveform. So this is the waveform of that audio. Looks kind of like what we saw inside of Audition. Now if I select this and hit L twice on the keyboard, I can see just the waveform. I'm also going to zoom up on the timeline. I'm going to hit the plus key. Again, same keyboard shortcut as inside of Audition. So I'll zoom out a little bit. And what I'm looking for here is when I play the animation starts here. We have the A sort of building up. Comes down on the lower right. Then when we get to this point here, if you remember from the last workshop, inside of this comp is the letter A animation. And we have those angled shapes moving out, breaking the plane of the left side of the A. So let's get the playhead back to this point here. Then I'm going to come up here and select the audio and drag this back. So I want the high point of the audio to match when this animation is going to begin. And I'll even bring this about maybe one frame to the left. So let's bring our playhead back here. Let's play this. So we already have the first part sounding pretty good. If you want to be able to hear the audio as you scrub the timeline in After Effects, on the Mac, hold the Command key. On Windows, hold the Control key. And if I click and drag, I can kind of hear the audio. The faster I drag it, the more intact it will sound. But what I'm really looking for is to play this back and forth and hear the high points. So we've got the first piece here. By the time we get to the second strong note, which is about right here, I want the animation to be at the point when the second part of the A has been drawn, so down here. So I'm going to come down here and select all of these keyframes, drag them back. This is actually the path animation for the mask. And I want to bring this back to about right here. This is where the bottom part of the A would be revealed. Now we have the swooping animation inside of the comp. Let's not worry about that for the moment. Let's drag this out. We'll hold the Command key. And when we get to here, we've got that sort of swooshy sound. Let me pan over here a little bit. So when we get to the swoosh sound, we want to have the logo type be revealed. So I'll come down here, select these two keyframes on the logo mark animation. Notice that this keyframe here lines up with these two down here. So let's drag these two keyframes to match the playhead. And then holding the Command key on the Mac or Control in Windows, select all three of these layers. Then I'll drag all three layers back so that the keyframes align. And now if I hit play from here, that swooshing sound should match the reveal. Let me zoom out of the timeline a little bit. Now I might want to have the logo reveal take a little bit longer since the swoosh sounds a little bit longer. So I'll bring the playhead out a little bit. Then move these keyframes out a little bit. Let's listen to that. So that sounds good. Now let's come back here and finesse the middle part. So we've got the second sort of chime happening here where the bottom of the A is being drawn. So I'm actually going to grab all of these and move these out a little bit further. This is just something that you kind of finesse and play with. So we get to this point here. So now when I get to here with this noise, I want to have the angled shape starting to come in. So now I'm going to double click and go into this comp with the playhead here. When I'm inside of this comp, I can now see here where we are in this particular timeline in relation to its parent. So now I can select all of these keyframes and move these back a little bit. And this is the point where this animation will begin to play in relation to its parent. Let's come back here to the main parent, Altura logo animation comp. Bring the playhead back to the beginning and let's play this. So that timing looks a lot better. I would come back here and make a couple of more adjustments here. So by the time we get to this point here, we can see that the mask already comes down and we already have the logo starting to animate toward the left. So I'm going to bring the playhead back one frame. And I'm going to bring all three of these back a little bit. Let's bring this back. Let's play it again. And now playing this a couple of times, if I listen to the audio, there's a smaller sort of noise here. So we've got this 1, 2, 3, but there's a little note here. And after playing this a few times, I think that by the time we hit this second note, we should have the bottom part of the A. So I'll come back here and move these keyframes in a little bit, maybe to about right here. I might bring one of these keyframes out a little bit. So we've got one note when the whole thing starts. We've got this second note, which isn't quite as strong, where the A is complete. A stronger note when we have the A sort of drawing out toward the left. Hold for a second, and then we get the sort of swooshy sound. So on this note here, I want to have the angles finished. So let's double click back in here again. And as I mentioned before, you're going to do a lot of little adjustments here to sort of match the artwork with the audio. So what I want to do here, I know the timeline is right here where the music is in the parent comp. Let's bring the keyframes so that the ending keyframes are right here. Let's go back out. If I drag this, that's going to animate over this way. We're going to hit the second high note. The A is going to be complete. It's going to wait for a beat. That third beat's going to come in with the swoosh, and the whole thing's going to play out. So let's listen to this. So that timing feels a lot better to me. So now at this point, we can render out an MPEG-4 that we can bring into any of our applications that support video. And if you remember from the last workshop, we also rendered out a motion graphic template that we can use inside of Premiere Pro. Now, if I come up here to the window menu, come down to the Essential Graphics panel. Inside of the Essential Graphics panel, we created one property here, which allowed us to change the word athletics here. So if we put this against a lighter background, we can make the athletics label a little bit darker. And since this motion graphic template is based on the Altura logo animation, which is the comp we're currently working with, I can come down here and export another version of this motion graphic template. And when I bring this into Premiere, not only will I have the animation, but I'll also have the audio. And so now that we have both our audio and sound combined into our brand, next I'll show you a few more things that you can do inside of Audition to add special effects to audio. Now in this last example, I want to show you a few more things that you can start to do with Audition that can really help you change the experience of your audio. Now if you want to follow along, in the project files, there is a folder called The Main Goal Podcast, episode 117. This is a multi-track folder. Then if you come down here and open up the SESX file, you'll see the imported WAV files and the tracks. So I'll expand my Audition window here. So let's come up here and zoom up a little bit. So here we have a podcast where we have our host who is talking to Coach Taylor Holko, who just won districts with his high school soccer team. And in the audio, she talks about the fact that they're going to be calling Taylor from the field. So let me play a little bit of this.
His team just won districts, and he's agreed to talk to us from the field. Hi, Coach.
Hi there.
Coach.
So we can hear that they're both actually in the studio here. This is where we recorded this. But I want it to sound like Taylor's calling in on the phone. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over here and select track 2. So I've separated all of Taylor's audio onto track 2. So with track 2 selected, let's come over here to our effects rack. Let's enable the first effect. Come over here to the menu. Let's come down to filter and EQ, and let's choose FFT filter. Now in here, there's a bunch of presets that we can use. And as I mentioned before, these floating windows actually can be up and changeable while we play audio in the background. So let me move this over here. So let's come in here and select one of the presets. There's tons of things we can do in here. And so the one we want to use is called On Hold EQ. Let's select that. And what you'll see in the curves panel here is how the audio is sort of being truncated from the highest and lowest points. So to hear this, I'm going to bring the playhead out here to after Taylor answers Lauren's question. I'll hit the spacebar to play this.
It feels amazing. These players put so much effort.
So that's a pretty dramatic change on the way the audio sounds. If I come back here and make any additional adjustments, we will hear that. So what I want to do is let's come in here and play this and play around with the levels. So I'm going to pan out here a little bit. And I'm going to let this play while I change the curves. So I'll hit the space bar.
It feels amazing. These players put so
come in here and
much
change some of these.
Into training, the off season, making sure that they were ready for this game, and it really showed.
So as I drag this part up, we get much more of the bass. We get a much more fuller sound to the audio, and it sounds less telephone-like. As I drag this down, we get more of that kind of telephone feel. Now the cool thing is I can come in here and make this whatever I want. I don't have to take just what's in the preset. So I'll drag this back a little bit. I'll play this again.
It feels amazing. These players put so much effort into training.
I'm going to open this one up a little bit just so he sounds a little bit more clear.
They were ready for this game, and it really showed tonight. And overall, I'm just
And then I'll
really
bring this
proud of these
point up
guys.
a little bit. It still gives me the telephone feel, but it makes it just a little bit louder. So I like the way this is sounding. Drag this back. Let's play it again.
It feels amazing. These players put so much effort.
So I think that sounds great. So I'm going to come down here and close that. Now, anytime we apply effects on a track, these are non-destructive. So I can always come over here and turn that effect off, hit play.
Effort into training, the off season, making sure that.
So that's how he sounds normally. Then I'll come over here, turn that back on.
Training, the off season, making sure that they were ready for this.
So now I really like the way that sounds, but it also sounds a little too clear. Even though we've sort of truncated some of the overall range of the audio, it still sounds really clear. There's no noise. So let's come up to the effects menu. Let's come down to generate, and let's come down here and choose noise. Now we can generate a couple of different types of noise in our file as well. So I'm going to give this a name. It's actually going to create a wave file for us at 48,000 Hertz. Let's click OK. Next, we can choose the type of noise we're going to create. So there are basically 4 flavors or 4 colors of noise. There's brown, pink, white, and gray. So this is brown noise. Let's go to pink. Let's go to white. And let's go to gray. So after listening to all of these, I really like the gray noise. So I'm going to come down here and click OK on that. And that's actually been created on Taylor's layer over here. So let's grab that and move this down. And what I want to do is introduce the noise as soon as Taylor picks up the phone. So Lauren's up here asking if she hears him. She says right here, hello, Coach.
Hi, Coach.
Hi there.
So as soon as he connects, we're going to have that noise down here. Then we'll come back here and just decrease the amplitude. We don't need that quite as loud. So I'll set this to maybe -7. Let's try that.
Hi there.
Coach Holko, congratulations on winning district.
So we can hear that in the background. Let's scroll over here. Now, if I want to increase the noise, I can copy this and paste it again. Or when we generated the noise, I can pick a longer duration. I could make this maybe 1 minute or 2 minutes long. You can generate as much noise as you need. So now this is going to be playing the entire time that Taylor's talking. So let me zoom out here by tapping the minus key on the keyboard. And I can see all of the different tracks. And then I can see how much I would need to extend out the noise to make it last the entire interview, which would be about 1 minute and 10 seconds. So at this point, I'd like to open up a copy of the final project that I was working on, where I've added a little bit of music to the beginning, and I've added a couple of sound effects in here as well. So let me bring the play back to the beginning. So at the beginning, I have this little music intro here. Then we have Lauren introducing the podcast. Let me come in here and zoom up a little bit so we can see what's happening. So while Lauren is saying that they're going to be talking to Taylor on the phone, I have this phone sound here. I can play this.
Just won districts.
So in the background, her producer is actually calling Taylor and he answers from the field. And then we can see Taylor's answers here. So he's on track 3. And then on track 5, I've added another sound effect of a crowd cheering. So here's what the whole thing sounds like when we put all of this together.
Welcome to this live episode of The Main Goal. We're going to be talking to Coach Taylor Holko. His team just won districts, and he's agreed to talk to us from the field. Hi, Coach.
Hi there.
Coach Holko, congratulations on winning districts. Your team is going to states. What a great game. How does it feel?
It feels amazing. These players put so much effort into training the off season, making sure that they were ready for this game, and it really showed tonight. And overall, I'm just really proud of these guys.
After some nerve-wracking moments at the end of the first half, your team came out really strong to start the second. What was your message to the players at halftime?
Yeah, so that was definitely a tough way to end the half, but talking to the players, I said, this is something that we knew was coming. This is something that we had trained for, prepped for, and really the focus was getting back to our style of play and making sure that we did the small things correctly and not letting the moment get too big for us.
Congratulations on your win. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us from the field, and good luck at States.
Okay, thank you so much. Great talking to you.
So all I have to do is add in Lauren's audio promoting the fact that Altura Athletics is sponsoring this particular episode, and then we're ready to render this and put it up on our podcast channel. And so as you can hear, working with multiple tracks, adding in different sound effects, playing with some of the different effects that we can apply to that audio, we can really create an overall environment and an experience with our audio using multiple tracks inside of Audition. Well, this brings us to the end of this workshop. We've taken a look at a few different ways that we can search, capture, edit, and style audio using Capture, Adobe Stock, and Audition. And now that we have a motion and audio design for our brand, in the next workshop, we'll take a look at techniques that will allow us to style video to match our brand, much like we did earlier in the series with photography.